In light of the events surrounding Zelensky's termination from Niji Sanji En, Niji Sanji posted a notice to their website for their investors. The notice, containing only 2 sentences, basically boils down to saying that the termination of Zelensky will have negligible impact on their finances. So I decided to take a look into their finances to see for myself if the statement really holds any water. The most obvious thing to look at first would be the value of ANYCOLOR stock since the announcement of Selen's termination. The termination notice was posted at about 8 p.m. JST on January 5th. This happens to be after the closure of the Tokyo Stock Exchange. We can clearly see that investors reacted quite negatively on January 6th. The value of ANYCOLOR stock fell from a closing price of 3,820 yen the day prior to an opening price of 3,740 yen. By the end of the day, ANYCOLOR's stock value fell to 3,625, a drop of about 5%. The following day, January 7th, did not fare any better, with the stock free falling at the market's open with a daily low of 3,335 yen. ANYCOLOR released a notice regarding Selen's termination to their investors, and it seemed this calmed the market somewhat, as the stock climbed a bit, closing at 3,385 yen. The value of ANYCOLOR stock seems to be relatively stable since then, with a value just above 3,300 yen. Now, if we look at the closing value from January 5th to the 7th, we see that ANYCOLOR stock lost 435 yen. If we multiply this by the number of shares owned by Riku Tazumi of 27,194,020, we get 11.8 billion yen, or a loss of $79.2 million in just a couple of days. Now, this is a hit to Riku Tazumi's personal wealth. The value of a stock does not directly affect a company's finances. So, let's take a look at ANYCOLOR's most recent financial documents. Japan's fiscal year starts in April, but based on ANYCOLOR's most recent filings, it seems their fiscal year is shifted by a month and starts in May. That means ANYCOLOR's most recent financial report for Q2 contains data ending October 31st rather than September 30th. We can try to guess how much an average Niji Sanji talent makes using the numbers provided. ANYCOLOR reports having 34 EN talents in Q2 of 2024. If we take the revenue and divide it by the 34 talents, and assume an overall take-home cut of 20% for the talents, we get 15.4 billion yen, or about $103,000 per talent in a 6-month period, or about $200,000 annually.
By the way, my mom scolded me about this because, during all of this, she looked at my financials and I made 0 profit last year. She was like, Doki, you have to spend less because you spent $200,000 last year.
This table does provide data on the cost of sales, but this number isn't particularly useful to us since it also contains money paid to vendors for commerce, events, and promotions. Money which isn't all going to the talents. Looking at our calculations for an average EN talents take-home cut, it seems that a 20% overall cut is too much if one of their top female talents can spend $200,000 in a year and make no profit. With that, we can pretty safely assume that the average talent is generating at least 5 times what they make as revenue for ANYCOLOR, meaning your average liver likely generated at least $1 million, or 150 million yen in revenue last year. If we take the 6-month period revenue of 77 million per EN liver against 15 billion generated by all of Niji Sanji, we get 0.5%. So your average EN talent really is negligible when considering all of the Niji livers. Again, this is some back-of-the-napkin math for an average talent. It's very likely that Zelensky's contributions were much greater. If we assume her contributions were in the neighborhood of 1 to 2% of ANYCOLOR's total revenue rather than 0.5%, it could be argued that the impact of Slentotsky's contributions as an individual is not negligible. In fact, it would make her one of ANYCOLOR's top earners in the 2023 fiscal year. It also can't be denied that businesses pulling out of their partnership with Nijisanji or otherwise stop selling Nijisanji merchandise will be a hit to ANYCOLOR's future revenue. Canceling official partnerships with Nijisanji will have a direct impact on their cut of sales for allowing the use of their IP. Unofficial artists ceasing to sell Nijisanji merch, while not having a direct impact on ANYCOLOR's financials, still affects them by effectively no longer providing free marketing for Nijisanji livers. This will likely have knock-on effects where future growth of livers will slow down. Seeing how the community reacted to Selen's termination, it is plausible that businesses will be hesitant to partner with ANYCOLOR or Nijisanji in the future. With the current situation surrounding Nijisanji Ian, it is very likely that the Ian branch will perform worse in the foreseeable future, as fans and businesses pull their support. With the Ian branch making up 17% of ANYCOLOR's total revenue, the financial consequences of their action are anything but negligible if fans continue to boycott. The issue is that this boycott will hurt the livers much more than ANYCOLOR, considering they have 16 billion yen in cash that can be used to weather the storm. On a different note, if we jump over to ANYCOLOR's slide regarding quarterly revenue, there are some indications that don't look good for them. If we look at the JP chart, there is a pretty clear trend where Q4 is their weakest quarter, with Q1 through Q3 showing steady growth. That is until Q2 of fiscal year 2024, where they have an unseasonably weak showing. Considering the current economic situation has gotten worse since Q2, their Q3 statement doesn't look promising. Shifting over to the EN chart, we see a year-over-year decrease of 12.8%, which isn't good considering the number of EN talents actually increased from 26 to 34 in that period. On top of that, we see their quarterly revenue has stagnated and is in a slight decline. This doesn't take into account the number of popular EN talents that have graduated since Q2. Again, this doesn't look promising. Lastly, I want to point out a hilariously bad point in their presentation material to investors. VTuber's high retention rate of 97%, which is from April 2022. That took place a year and a half before the slides were made, and it only includes JP talent. ANYCOLOR, but you chose black.